This is Dr. Eric Mortensen, your professor, and I want to talk about the paper you have coming up. And this is sort of a quick analysis, critical analysis paper writing guide to help you out. Basically, the objectives are to, again, just to prepare you for writing the paper, identifying key components that you're going to need to have in the paper, and helping you with your drafting process. Okay. First thing you need to do is finish pre-writing, right? This is very important. We talked about this earlier in this semester. Pre-writing activities, brainstorming, clustering, whatever it takes to kind of get you thinking about what you want to write about and engaging the article. Look at my feedback from your previous papers. Some of you, I've stressed this on the video announcements I've been making. I'm giving you feedback, so try to use it to your advantage. And make sure to take notes, annotate the text. Again, engage the material so that you're farther along when you go to start writing. Okay, this is true of any paper. Make sure you review the prompt and the rubric. So I think there's a bit of confusion here. The rubric lets you know the ways in which the paper will be graded, but that's not the only sort of document that you have at your disposal. You also have the prompt, which is where the assignment, where I actually lay out the assignment. So, take a look at the prompt is probably the most important, obviously, because that's telling you what to do. But I've noticed a few people haven't followed the prompt, and that's cost them points. So please, make sure you understand the assignment. You can take a look at the rubric and see what we're looking for, what I'm looking for. Take notes and ask questions if you need to. Now, first step is to make after you're ready to write, make an outline. I know not everybody does this, but it's really helpful. It helps you organize your thinking, and it helps you with your logos, right? It helps you appear a bit more authoritative because you've thought these things out, and it sort of flows logically. That's the idea. The paper should flow logically. The reader should be reading it. There shouldn't be any confusion. You should be carrying your reader from the thesis and the introduction through the body paragraphs to support that thesis to the conclusion, ideally. Thesis is important. This is the most important element of your paper. You need this. The reader wants it. They need a sense of where the paper is going, and you as a writer need it so that you know what to talk about. And again, check your body paragraphs against the thesis. Check your thesis against the body paragraphs. They should go together. They should make sense. They should support one another. Here's a practice. Pause if necessary. Now, when looking at your author's claims, you're reading critically, like we talked about in the last slide. In the last presentation. Logical fallacies, faulty reasoning or no reasoning, unsupported opinions, connection to overall purpose, right? You're critiquing this piece of writing, which isn't to say you just immediately start attacking it on every level. It just means that you're reading critically, reading closely, and you're engaging it. You're evaluating it as you read. So as you're evaluating it, look for the effectiveness of primary evidence, effectiveness of secondary evidence, and their ethos, pathos, and logos. Are they balanced? Now, in terms of the author's assumptions, you might want to think about intended audience and purpose, Maslow's hierarchy, and does the purpose match the needs and values of the audience? Now, when you're looking at bias, you should be exploring the perspectives or sides that the author's taking, the author's personal experiences or credentials, and whether the author's credentials establish ethos or create bias, right? Do they have a stake in what they're arguing, or do they appear unbiased and someone you can trust? Okay, so for each strength or weakness you've noted, what example can you point to illustrate your point? How are you going to explain that evidence? Again, it's not just, you can't just say, well, this person's biased. Okay, you'll be biased unless you actually give me an example of that and argue about it, right? So I need evidence from the article, right? Summary, a paraphrase, or a quotation from the article to back up your points. Otherwise, you're in the same boat as they are. Here's a practice. Now, the TER model, we went over this a while ago, remember, this is how your body paragraphs will be structured. So this is a sample, right? This is kind of a very basic sample, but it gives you the idea as a review. The author, I'm reading from the slide, the author oversimplifies opposing views. Okay, this is the sort of the mini thesis of the paragraph. That's the T, right, the topic. E, the evidence. He describes his opponents as thinking X or whatever you're going to quote, which is not a fair representation of their position. Okay, that's the evidence. But you need to analyze that, right? So the next sentence does that. By oversimplifying their argument, he's creating a straw man rather than engaging meaningfully with opposing arguments. And then finally, you need a kind of a wrap-up sentence that kind of explains the link to the thesis. This weakens his overall argument. So this, again, this is a very short paragraph, right? Yours will probably be longer. This gives you an idea of what you'll be doing in the paragraphs to make your point. You also need to write an intro, of course. You might want to do that, or you should probably do that after you finish your body paragraphs. I mean, you need to have a thesis to guide your body paragraphs, but it might wait. It might make more sense to write the intro after you've finished the body paragraphs. Remember, the intro is getting the reader's attention, introducing, basically the article and the author, and you're going to talk about, summarizing the main points, and establishing a thesis statement. This should kind of go from a more general point to more specific, throughout the introduction. So you should probably be ending on your thesis statement in the introduction. You also need a conclusion, which of course makes sense to write after you've finished everything else. Conclusions do two things. They sort of summarize what you stated, what the thesis, but they also offer a way of understanding, giving the reader a sense of what are the stakes of this, why did they read this paper, right? And that's a bit hard to do, but it's worth trying to do. But you should certainly give the reader a sense of what it was you argued. Okay, good. Best of luck with your paper. Look forward to reading them.